Okay? And if you see that at a certain moment I'm leaving, it's not because I am disagreeing with what he is telling, but because I have to run to a PhD. Okay? Good. Something else, the people who have to write the paper start doing it. For your exams, not at the last moment. Okay.
Good evening to everyone. Chris Allen is coming from Birmingham University. He is a British academic, as you see from his accent. Clearly. Currently based at the Institute for Applied Social Studies at Birmingham University at the Sociology Department. At the Sociology Department. And he is currently also chief editor the Journal for Peace, Gender and Development Studies. Alan received funding from the UK Arts and Humanity Research Council to undertake research into the phenomenon of Islamophobia. In the book, Alan put forward a theoretical exposition of Islamophobia, establishing a new definition and conceptualizing it as an ideological phenomenon that has a variety of different modes of operation and practices that we will see together in this evening lecture. His other research interests include the role and function of faith and faith communities in the public space and private spheres, and minority community issues, also racial studies, and last, community and social cohesion. I'd like to thanks again and welcome again.
Good evening, everyone. I do have a terrible British accent, so I do apologise. I should have put this in an email before I came, that I have a terrible accent. My PhD supervisor was Danish, and the first time I was invited to go to Europe and speak, just as I was leaving his office, he said to me, "Have you ever thought about having speech lessons?" And I laughed, and he looked at me deadly serious and went, "No, I was being serious." And then the first time I actually came to Europe to speak was to Belgium. And yes, I did encounter problems with my accent, so I do apologise from the start. Also as well, I've literally been off the train for about 25 minutes. And I started this morning at about 9 o'clock, and I've taken 4 trains to get here. So if I'm a bit slow or a bit jaded at the start, then bear with me. I will get into the swing of things quite soon. I mean, it's a great honour to be invited abroad. I mean, anyone, you know, if living in Birmingham and working in Birmingham and then seeing that people in Europe are actually interested in the research we do there, it is absolutely, you know, is a great honour for us. And increasingly, obviously, the issue that I do research into is something that is increasingly becoming a problem, and I say problem with speech marks, is increasingly becoming something of interest to a wider audience in Europe. And so, as I say, it's a great honour to be invited over, and hopefully what I'm going to try and do today is to really try and give you just a kind of flavour of the research that I've been doing, to give you a little bit of the history of the research I've done, to try and bring you up to date, and then to really try and pose some questions around some of the challenges that I think that we will encounter, or we will continue to encounter within the kind of multicultural European setting. So I don't have all the answers, and I will leave some of the questions open, but hopefully we can engage on some of these in terms of the questions and answers at the end of the session. So I think one of the first things for me is to kind of raise the question, what is Islamophobia? Because I think that there's still a big question about what is Islamophobia. And only a few weeks ago I did a talk. It probably gets lost in the cultural differences between Britain and Belgium. But I was invited to do a talk on Islamophobia in a pub, in a public house, A bar, do you know what a pub is? Yeah, I don't know if that's a British word or well, whether that's translated. But yeah, I was invited to do a talk in a pub, of all places, around Islamophobia. And it was a bit of a ridiculous idea, and I took up the challenge and got completely attacked because of some of the things I said. But that's by the by. But one of the things was the idea of the term, the word. What do we mean by this word? And I think that one of the things that we have to say right at the start, and it's just about kind of clearing the air, you know, because some people get quite uncomfortable with the term or the concept or what's right or what's wrong. And I think that what we have to say is that there's nothing actually wrong when we talk about legitimate criticism or legitimate condemnation. So for example, using the British scenario, the fact that 4 young guys who were Muslim blew themselves up on the London Tube is actually right that we condemn that, in the same way that we will condemn anybody that's committed such atrocities. And I think that we have to make that clear. So, you know, using the term Islamophobia is not about putting a shield up so we can't criticise. It's not about suppressing the freedom of speech. It's not about suppressing argument or criticism or any of these sort of things. It's actually just about being the same way we are with Muslims and with the religion of Islam, as indeed we would be with anybody else within society and any other religion as well. And so, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong in us being able to condemn. I also don't think that it's Islamophobic to be critical of certain practices or activities, you know. So in the same way, if somebody that engages in a particular activity which is discriminatory or oppressive or illegal, we have the right to actually criticise that. And I think, again, if we take that back and we just say, well, it doesn't really matter whether it's a Muslim or a non-Muslim that's actually committing such an activity or participating in such an activity, it's right that we can actually criticise in terms of that. So when I talk about Islamophobia, I'm not trying to shut down debate. I'm not trying to say we can't condemn, we can't criticise. And in the same way as well, I don't think that we can expect everybody to agree with the tenets of the religion of Islam. You know, people will be anti-religious. People will be sort of anti the idea of Islam, in the same way that people would be against the kind of beliefs of Judaism or Christianity or Buddhism or any of those. And so we can't get to a stage where we would expect everybody to see sense within the religion of Islam, the beliefs of Islam. And for people to say, I don't believe in your religion, again, is not Islamophobic. But I think that there is the next point that comes up. It's when these are used, when these condemnations, when these criticisms, when these disagreements, when they're used to stereotype, to discriminate, to vilify, to attack, to oppress, to denigrate, to any of these things, when people use what could be a legitimate criticism to then stereotype all Muslims, I think that's where we actually start to get into the area that I would say we're talking about Islamophobia. So it's perfectly okay to criticise, but when we use that criticism to then stereotype all Muslims without differentiation, I think that's where that kind of line becomes for me, where I can say, okay, that's actually Islamophobic and that's not. Now, I'm saying that as if that's absolutely clear. Of course, we're not talking in black and white scenarios. There's a massive grey area in the middle. But I think that it's worth setting that out at the start, just to try and sort of say, well, you know, we're not trying to shut down discussion. We're not trying to shut down debate. We're not trying to shut down criticism in any way. What we're trying to do is we're trying to have a legitimate discussion and a legitimate debate. Okay, so I want to just take us back a little bit to kind of when my research started. And my research started, I first started looking at the issue of Islamophobia in around 1999. I normally say that I started researching the topic before it got sexy. I don't know if anybody knows the Dutch football player Ruud Gullit. When he was the manager of the Newcastle football team in Britain, he said he wanted to make sexy football. So I say, well, you know, I started looking